What's going on, good people, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Manup Real Talk podcast. I am your host with the most, Mr. Michael Wiley, saying greetings and salutations to all of you, our faithful followers and listeners. Please understand that we appreciate all the likes, the clicks, the shares, and the downloads, and whatever it is that you do to support this podcast, because we know that had it not been for you guys, it wouldn't be no us. So we do not take it for granted, and we greatly appreciate it. Now, for those of you all that's joining us for the first time, I want to say welcome. And for you all that's back for a second helping, I say welcome back, because your boys is back on the air with another episode of the Man Up Real Talk podcast, a podcast for the people. And joining me as always is my brother-in-law, my partner in crime, my ace boom coon, as they used to say back in the day. My brother from another mother, Mr. Phillips, a.k.a. Mr. Classic, a.k.a. OG Triple OG, who is always and definitely in the building. What's going on, man?
Hey, what's going on, brother-in-law? How you doing?
Man, I'm doing great, man. It's another Tuesday. I missed y'all last week, as always. You know, we didn't do a show last week, and every time we don't do a show, I miss the peoples, man. So I'm glad we back on this week. We got a good one today, y'all. I'm telling you. I'm excited, and we're about to get into it in a few minutes. Listen, if you haven't already, please go and follow us on social media. Y'all already know the vibes. We own all them apps. I'm talking TikTok and Instagrams and Twitters, so y'all can tweet, like, and all that good stuff. Just go look us up on social media. You'll find us. We there. Listen, I encourage you, if you haven't already did so, please go over, because I'm tired of begging y'all. Go over and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Please.
Just go, please. I just can't have them begging like this all the time. Go and subscribe to our YouTube channel and like and click that little bell and all that good stuff. So when we go live, you can get that notification, because we are going to have YouTube exclusive content. Starting next month, we're going to do a Man Up Real Talk Sportscast.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yes,
all my
sir.
sports fans is going down, and that is going to be YouTube exclusive. So if you like sports, if you like good conversation, man, you want to definitely go over there and subscribe to the channel so you can hang out with us while we talk Bears and just sports in general. We're about to bear down. It's August, man. August is right around the corner. Y'all got to bear down, man. I'm calling it out, Bill.
Preseason, baby.
I'm calling it now. 9-8, son. That's how we going down.
Whatever.
9-8 for the Bears, yes, sir. Listen, real quick. Now, some of you all have already given, and God bless your ministry.
Thank y'all.
We appreciate
Thank y'all so much.
Listen, this Saturday it is going down. July 31st, this Saturday from 12 to 4, we're doing the Rock the Block back to school party. Listen, we wanted to do something for the kids and be a blessing to the community. And so we are doing a back to school block party. I'm telling y'all right now, it's going to be off the chain. We're going to have food. Not only do we have food, we got a professional chef on the grill. Y'all ain't heard that. It ain't field burning food.
Relax, Mike. You started too early, man. Chill.
I'm sorry.
Chill.
I'm sorry. But yeah, so we got a professional chef. He gonna be on the grill doing his thing. We're gonna have music provided by YouTube. And not only that, we're gonna be handing out school supplies for the kids. But then on top of that, we got giant Connect 4, we got giant bowling, we got giant Jenga. Just in case y'all didn't know, on Man Up, we do things big.
That's right.
I don't know if y'all remember the American Gladiator show back in the day when they had the big Q-tips knocking people off the thing. We got the big Q-tips out there. And we're going to have a fire truck. We're going to have an ice cream truck. We got a barber coming out there. And on top of that, we're doing our first annual Nerf War. I mean, come on, y'all. It's gonna be grand. And look, and for those of you all that's asked, we are still taking donations. I'm going to post a list up on my page and on the podcast page for the school supplies that we're still in need of. And if you want to donate and be a blessing, please do. It's this Saturday, July 31st, 12 to 4, Rock the Block. Come on out, man, and be a part. It's going to be a grand event.
That's right.
Listen, so tonight we are talking oh, thank you, darling. I see what you're doing. She said she's going to have a list shortly. I appreciate you. That's my wife for those y'all that don't know. I love her dearly. and she's always on point. I appreciate you. I got to say what's up to the people in the chat. Y'all already know how we do it. For those of y'all that's here, that's hanging out, I see my boy Sean, he up in here. Miss Madison, I appreciate you, darling, for hanging out with us. We got, who else is in here? My boy Romel is in the building. He chilling. I appreciate you hanging out. And for those of y'all, if you didn't say anything, that's okay. I still appreciate you. For those that's watching and for those that's going to watch later. Big Kev in the building. What's going on, man? We see you. We appreciate you.
Kev, what's going on, bro?
Let's dive right into this. I want to go ahead and bring our guest on so we can go ahead and talk about the subject. Our first guest is he is a principal within the Chicago public school system, and I consider him to be a friend of the podcast. We've had it on previously. We were talking about what were we talking about the last time it was on? We're talking about homeschooling and not homeschooling, but virtual learning and stuff.
Remote learning.
Yeah, remote learning, man. We had him on, had a wonderful conversation, and I wanted to bring him back on. We got Mr. John Bennet of the Chicago Public School System joining us on today. John, are you there?
I'm here. What's going on, fellas? Good to see you.
Hey, how you
doing? Chilling. And also a friend of the podcast. This man, look here. Him being a historian, I think that just undermines what he does. This man, look, he is a legit powerhouse when it comes to not only Black history but just knowledge in general. I mean, he served this country. He's a veteran. He's an engineer. He's a playwright. This man does things that they had to redact because if he told y'all about it, he would have to kill you. That's just how much I'm telling you. He's a force to be reckoned with, and we're glad to have him back on. Mr. Eddie K. Phillips, what's going on today, sir?
I was looking for who you was introducing.
Talking about you, brother. Eddie, we talking about
I was
you.
like, hey, Eddie, I wanted your intro. I said, whoa, yeah, this one is something else. It's like somebody else something else.
Yes, sir. Man, I am glad to have you guys on. Today, I wanted to pick your brains. Because I have to admit that I am a little ignorant in regards to the topic.
Me and you, Mike. Me and you both.
Yeah, but I've been hearing so much, but like now it's kind of like been like this big snowball thing, and the conversation is building. And I wanted to talk to you all about critical race theory. Now Eddie actually did a show on it last week, and he has a really good handle on exactly what critical race theory is, and he can probably explain it a little bit better than me. But it's essentially, in a nutshell, is what critical race theory teaches is that the things that affect African Americans or we as a people isn't necessarily a direct result of racism from an individual, but it's actually as a result of systematic things that are within our justice system and our school system, and just little subtle things that we don't even know exist that have been there and that has systematically held us back as a people. And Eddie, I hope that kind of sums it up. It's probably a little more complex than that, but essentially I think that's what critical race theory is. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, you hit it a lot of parts of it. The thing about CRT, right, is that the way it started, right, is so the whole thing is I like to look at it as principles, right? If you have some of us, you have different principles. You like to be honest. You like to you want to love people. You want to be good to people, right? So you have principles in your life, right? So when we start thinking about critical race theory and how it affects us and what it does and how it you hit that right on the head, right? It's affecting us, and it's the system, it's the way this country is. It talks about the history, it talks about how we interact with each other, all of that. But I think to some extent it has gotten lost in the rigmarole of society that they're trying to teach it, and we'll get into that. But I think you did a pretty good explanation of it.
Oh, well, thank you. See, coming from you, that means a lot. I appreciate that. So what I wanted to talk to you guys specifically because there seems to be an issue, whereas critical race theory, there have been some schools and some teachers that want to integrate or introduce CR2 into the school systems as a curriculum. And the issue that a lot of problems are having, and when I say, the issues that some people are having, and by some people, how can I say this? white Republicans and ignorant black folk, they have this problem with CRT because they say that it teaches division. My first question to both of you gentlemen, I'll give you each an opportunity to answer. First, I'm gonna direct this to you, John, as a principal. How do you personally feel about CRT being taught in schools? Is it something that you think should be taught, or do you have a different opinion in regards to CRT?
So, if anything, first off, thanks for having me and inviting me to come talk about it. I think if anything, CRT, as a construct is not new. What is new is the name for it, right? So there's a name for this thing now that people created so they can attack it, so it can be an entity of itself, right? So let's give it a name and could say that's that thing we don't like. And it has tenets, right? So you mentioned people who may be opponents of it, and just thinking about the tenets of it. There are 5 tenets of it. One that comes under attack is the notion that racism is a part of the fabric of the United States. People don't like to hear that type of stuff. We've seen that with the response to the vice president and saying it, and countless other instances where people don't want to own racism as a part of the fabric of our country. The other is that, another tenet is that white people in particular have actually been like the benefit of civil rights legislation, right? Particularly like white women in particular, right? So, I mean, those two in particular, I think are two things when you give something a name that people want to sort of buck because it makes it seem as though we have been beneficiaries of something, right? And nobody wants to own the fact that they've been sort of given a silver platter, right? The teaching facts, right? You can never go wrong with teaching facts in schools. That'll never be something that'll be an issue. But when we give it a name and people can say, well, hey, don't do that, that creates division, that's where, we see issues, especially in schools, when people want to say, oh, well, you're teaching division, you're teaching this or that. I'm teaching facts,
Right.
This thing happened, right? In 1619, we arrived here. Can't debunk that. Can't demystify it. Can't whatever. That actually happened. But when I guess people feel as though they're being labeled or attacked in a way or any way that makes it seem as though you've been a beneficiary of a benefit that you didn't necessarily earn is when you're going to see people stand up and say, cry foul.
Now, you did say something interesting in regards to the arrival, so to speak, of critical race theory, because to my understanding, it was initiated back in was it the late 70s or the early 70s or something like that? Yeah. So it's a concept that's about 40 years, that's a little bit over 40 years old. So this isn't anything new. It just seemed like all of a sudden now it's picking up more steam, mainly because, and I think you really hit it on the head, is that, like one of the tenets that you spoke of is like, I think white people also view their whiteness as kind of like a property, right? And they almost feel threatened that that with the teaching of this, I'm using air quotes, theory, that they may lose said property. Yes. I don't know if that makes sense. So
it's always about loss. Yeah, it makes total sense.
I understand why they may feel threatened with such teachings being introduced into the school system. The division part, their argument is that by teaching this, what you are saying is that the way this one guy tried to word it, he tried to make it seem like if you teach this, what you're doing is that you're giving kids the opportunity to cop out and to not try, because now they have a reason to blame their failure on somebody else, right? And and I thought that was terrible. So in regards to it being taught in school, John, are you for it being taught in school, or do you think it should be left out to maybe for just knowledge for some people to seek out, or how do you think we should approach it?
I think when it comes to what's being taught in schools, we're talking about, public schools at large. You never can go wrong when you talk about facts. The same comes up across, different different areas of interest, whether it's religion, whether it's politics. If you stick to facts, you can never go wrong.
That's
So I think the issue, what we're seeing right now is people don't want some facts to be sort of brought to light or being described as facts. Like Jim Crow, for example, it happened.
Right.
There's no denying that Jim Crow was a thing, but it's nice and neat and whatever to sort of sweep it under the rug and go completely pro-patriot. And I don't think the two are mutually exclusive. I think you can talk about being proud to be an American, right? I'm proud to be an American. I'm proud to live here. But I can also own the fact that our history is flawed, and we can still bring to light the things that we've done wrong in the pursuit of things that make us better, right? So when it comes to, I guess, what's taught in schools, my advice to teachers is always about what's factual, right? You could never go wrong with fact as long as it's not clouded with like your own interpretations of what has happened. Again, whether that is across a historical context, a religious context, a political context, facts are facts, and there's no debunking the fact, right? And if somebody doesn't want to sort of own up to the fact, then that's their issue, that's their problem, right? To wrestle with for whatever reason they don't want to own up to that fact. But if we look at things that actually happened and the effect of those things, that is also factual. Things like redlining, for example, like that's a real thing. You can't deny that it's a real thing, right? It's a thing that's happened that is still affecting generational wealth across African Americans even to this day, right? That's a fact. So facts, can't be debated, and that's my goal in working with schools is to say, hey, teach the facts, teach what actually happened, even if it's not pretty, right? Yeah. There are tons of things that are not that even as African Americans, Black people, cast us in a light, that is not great. That some people say, well, even like we talk about the Kanye quotes. I don't want to get that too much either about slavery being a choice or whatever else, but like these are all things that happen.
I didn't want to bring him up, John, but okay, since you went there.
But I mean, that type of stuff, though, right?
Since you went there.
People want to say that type of thing, right? Where it's like you're not. That's not factual, Right. And if you go back to what actually facts, stories, narratives, it's a space you live in as a school principal, where people want to send you off all the time. They come to you with all types of problems about their interpretations of how a situation played out or whatever. Our job as school leaders is to really get to the facts. Okay, what actually happened, right? And that's what I respond to. Same thing goes to what we teach, right? We teach facts, and the goal is to teach facts around what transpired, the effects of those things, and sort of where we are now as a result of our history, and not to repeat history, because now we have the tools and a lot of power, that we're not even aware of, right? Yes, that we can really use to make that difference.
So, Eddie, as a patriot, as someone who served this country, I imagine that I couldn't imagine a greater conflict, right, within you or within a person is to say how I feel about my country and how my country feels about me. When you hear or when you read these things and when you come across these things in regards to critical race theory, like I remember hearing you say that it's, first of all, it's not a theory. And I think they should change the name of it. It's like, it's not a theory. These are facts. These are things that actually happen. What are your views on critical race theory being taught? Maybe even if not in school, just being taught in general. Like how important do you think this is as compared to what's normally been taught?
Well, I think you guys unpacked a couple of things, right? One of the things that I tried to talk about earlier, last week, that CRT deals with is the ordinariness of racism, right? We all are affected by our condition, how we're conditioned in this country, how we've lived with each other for hundreds of years. I think that that's a huge part of it. You asked about patriotism, being in the military. One of the things is that Black folks have served in every war, every conflict throughout the history of this country. Yeah. And a lot of times we were not given the credit or the recognition for the things that we did, right? That turned a lot of wars around. One of the things that critical race theory tries to talk about is the idea of how people interest conversion, right? Why did they allow us to fight, right? Why did history do what it did? We can't go off the idea that it's just a morality, just a moral issue. It happened because the country needed it. They needed black slaves or to go fight against the Union to have more men. They needed us to help them, right? They needed us in every war and every conflict. But we also have to understand, and I think that it was just said, and you guys make a very good point. History, very often people tell me, I saw some stuff today, be nice, Eddie, be nice. History ain't nice. History's not nice, right?
Come on, brother Eddie.
And it ain't easy. I was looking today as I was getting ready, because I'm always putting history on you.
I know.
There was a German philosopher, and I took his notes down. Hegel, right? You can go look this up in the history of philosophy. And what he said is at this point that in Africa, that Africa provided nothing, right? These people are taught about these philosophers. They're taught about these people. We are taught it in our schools. So when we ask, should critical race theory be in the school? Let me tell you, as we get more black educators, right? As we get more black people who are learning about this, it's going to get into schools. It's going to get in our homes. That's why we do what we do for Erudition, because we have to do that. We have to teach ourselves better. What I will say lastly with that is that, history is about, we always look at history as evidential, right? That it has to be evidence. And that is true, right? But it also needs to be controversial. It has to be something that does not make you feel comfortable, right? So when we look at the oral history of the slave, when we look at the written records of what was done in this country, when we look at the cultural similarities and the way we talk to each other, the way we've lived with each other, our human genetics, when we look at how we affected society and the inventions and the things that we did, when we look back and even look at the DNA and the shared DNA, that we are all a part of the same family, because the African American is not purely African. Right. So when you look at the society, how we all play it, the intersectionality, how we play into each other, how we have to understand that if that person, that conservative, is sitting here telling you that he doesn't want you to know about this history, well, what is he denying? He's denying American history. He's denying world history. He doesn't want you to understand that this is what happened, right? Because he or she, and I think one of you all said it earlier, doesn't want to lose the privilege, doesn't want to use the recognition, doesn't want to feel bad. A couple of years ago, the historian, Henry Louis Gates, he's been doing those shows where he goes back in people's ancestry, right? And who was it? It was Ben Affleck was upset that he had slave owners in his family.
Yeah.
So he went to this noted historian and said, hey, could you cover this up? Let's not mention that. And he embarrassed Dr. Gates because Dr. Gates did not want to disclose that history. What I will say is this: we have to disclose it. CRT is not something to run from. It's not the boogeyman. It's just we need to be discussing these things about our history, about how we deal with things in this country. And if we're honest about it, we'll all grow from it.
Wow. The boogie, it's funny you say that, because that's white Republicans are treating CRT like it is this horrible thing that if you teach the kids about it, it's going to ruin their views on America. It's going to ruin their views on people. It's going to destroy, or as the memes go around now, their childhood will be ruined, right? Okay. And in actuality, it's really exposing them to the ugly truth that is slavery in America, and that is racism in America. I don't know what it is about race in this country that we can't seem to get over. And
people want to protect their own self-interest at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
Plain and simple, right? If I got something to lose as a result of like this truth coming out, or people change perspective, to go back to like even the perspective of schools, right? Our part of our job is also to teach critical thinking, right?
Absolutely.
And perspective. So even when we teach the context of history, part of our responsibility is to teach the perspectives, right? Something that was interesting that my wife shared with me. She got to go abroad to England when she was student teaching in college, and it came a point in time where when she was there, she had to talk about world wars, right? Something you don't think about is like, how do you talk about the context of a world war when you're on the other side of the world?
Right.
You're gonna put it from your perspective, and they're like, wait a minute, hold on, right? So I mean, that's kind of what we're faced with right now, where it's like, that other perspective is being presented, and you're allowing kids to decide for themselves. Hey, here are these two competing perspectives. Here are the facts. What do you think? We don't want that to happen, or they don't want that to happen, right? They would rather say, here it is. Here's what you should think about it. Let's move on, right? Don't think critically about that. Don't develop an opinion for yourself based on these facts presented.
Let me ask you guys a question. Like, let's just say, if they say, you know what, let's go ahead and let's create a curriculum to implement in our school systems in regards to critical race theory. Who's going to be over this curriculum?
Oh, that's a very interesting question right there, because that's a part. So again, let's unpack this critical race theory, right? Mm-hmm. That's a part of it, right? I'll even go further, Mike. Even if you are black, white, whatever, what qualifies you to teach history?
This is all I'm asking. Who's going to be over this curriculum?
Do you get the right to teach black history because you're black? Do you get a chance to teach English history because you're English? Does that mean you know what you're talking about?
Right.
Does that mean that you're studied, that you're sourced, that you know? And so that's an interesting thing, right? At the heart of it, this is why I keep saying, even with CRT, at the heart of it, whether we put it in the schools or not, right? Rather we do something to try to get our kids to think critically like this, right? I'm talking about all kids, white, black, and whatever. At the heart of it, it has to have a homegrown part of it. We have to teach history at home. We have to make it an issue where we know who we are, American, call whatever, world citizen, whatever you may be.
Right.
Because there's so much out here. And then this, I'm to tap onto your question too, let's think about this. We have to understand, John was just making a point about being overseas.
Yes,
I was looking at what's that cat's name? He was a famous professor back in, and I posted it early this morning. Trevor Roper, Royal professor at Oxford and Cambridge, well known, right? And people are still studying his books over there in these prestigious schools. But this man said that Africa was nothing. There was no history that came out of Africa that the European did not create.
Wow.
Right? So when you look at people like, John Burgess, right? 1902, in the history of Reconstruction, right? He said a black skin means membership to a race of men that never created or did anything for this world. And we could go even further. The European Enlightenment, David Hume, right? European Enlightenment was what created what we call our Constitution, our Declaration of Independence. These people were Enlightenment people. But he said, I am apt to suspect that the Negro to be naturally inferior to the white. They never civilized a nation. They've never done anything that the white man did not allow them to do. No indigenous manufacturing, anything that they did, no science, no anything. Now, when you have a country, when you have society, when you have Europe that thinks that, right? And still the parts of Europe thinks that.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
We have to teach our children that history is not in this rosy, the history of U.S., right? These little things that they teach you. Most people don't study history. They think it's boring. It's the most boringest class in school. I'm just going to learn a fact and keep moving. But history affects the way you think. It affects the way you operate, how you see yourself in this placement of this world. So when we think about the teachers, what are they going to teach? How does it get done? And that's a deeper question. That's why I don't know if it'll get into school as you see it. But even if it does, we have to be better as parents and as community people to be able to teach our kids properly.
So let me ask you then, should we be more concerned with correcting and improving the current history or curriculum that's being taught? Because let's just be honest. The only black history that really is taught in school is Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Medgar Evers, and maybe a couple of other people. But there is no real quote unquote history that's being taught. So I wonder then, should we worry less about critical race theory until we actually get the history correct? Or should we just, as you said, concentrate more on making sure that we do what we need to do at home to enrich our kids' lives and including that history? Or, I mean, how should we approach that? Should we fight to, because my thing is this, I appreciate critical race theory and I would love for it to be taught, but my biggest concern is who's going to teach it, number one. How is the curriculum going to be created, number two? And then how's it going to coincide with what's currently already being taught in schools? Do we take out what's being taught and replace it? Or do we just improve and make better what's already currently being taught?
Mike, let me say something real quick.
Go ahead, Phil.
Let me put my 2 cents in.
Come on, man. Go ahead and throw your dime in the conversation.
No, because I'm really not up on critical race theory like that. No, I mean, I read up on it, but I'm going to let these 2 scholars we got to speak on because they know more about it. But I'm going to piggyback on what Brother Eddie just said. It goes back to us teaching our own kids about our history. And it goes back to us researching and teaching ourselves about our history so we can pass it on to our children. And that's all I wanted to say about that. Because I really don't know. I really don't know how it works in the schools. Because truthfully, I truly believe that the people that's against it, the Republicans, they don't want to own up.
Wait. Why you say it like that?
they really don't. When it come down to it, man, some of these folks really don't want to own up to what their people did. I understand they didn't do it, but they don't want to own up to what their ancestors did to our ancestors.
But we talked about that before, though, right?
Yeah,
because one of the things that we were saying, and you guys can chime in too, like in regards to like say something like this. I think in order for it to really be successful, you have to have somebody to actually openly admit and say, "Okay, listen, this happened."
We were talking about the conversation. Remember
the conversation?
Yeah, about losing interest, right?
Right.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
It's like who's going to be that one to say, "Okay, listen, hello, I'm John Smith, and I benefited from white privilege." It's like who's going to do that? And so I don't know if we'll ever be able to really honestly.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's just.
I think it depends on the teacher, right? So I mean,
okay,
and
that's true.
I was lucky in a way. I was lucky at different parts of my life where I had 2 teachers I could think of in particular, Mr. Lott and Mr. Salisbury. I had Mr. Salisbury when I was in middle school, Mr. Lott when I was in high school. And what they taught us as if it were fact because it was, right? And what they added. So similar to what you guys are saying, I hear 2 things. I hear like this idea of like what's taught at home, right? Like what these guys taught us, were the same. And they were also guys from the neighborhood, right? They were from the neighborhood that the school existed in. So it's as if you're talking to your uncle, right? Gotcha. And they taught these things. It wasn't in the curriculum or whatever else. It was sort of like, hey, I'm going to talk to you about Vietnam, right? And within the context talking about Vietnam, their experiences, their lived experience of those around them came out, right? And I think as long as you have people, in front of kids that will do that same sort of thing,
exactly.
You're on the right track.
Yes.
Where we struggle though at schools, honestly, is that many schools are employing people who are coming from outside of the community. I mean, both literally and figuratively.
Yeah.
Right? So they're bringing their perspective, they're bringing their values, right, into the classroom, and that's what they tout, and that's what gets proliferated, across our youth. So as long as we put the right people in front of kids, and we need more of the right people, right. The things that we're describing as race theory, critical race theory, will be more organic than, again, this branded sort of a thing that needs to be incorporated.
Yeah.
Now, when you say more of the right people, John.
Yes, sir.
Well,
what are we referring to?
You know, we blame them conservatives though.
Thank you, Eddie.
I want us to be very clear though.
Yes, sir.
That crits, people in CRT, they're not just looking at the conservatives. And I'm gonna touch on that by saying, remember, if you go back, and I challenge anybody out there, you go back and read Malcolm X, The Ballad of the Bullet, right? Malcolm made that speech, and what he talked about was, and I remember reading that speech as a kid, game, man, he should have got shot that night, right? Because I was thinking to myself, wow, this is a deep speech. But what Malcolm was saying was that the Democrat and the Republican, the liberal and the conservative, however you want to do it politically, white is right, right?
Yeah.
That was the mentality.
Yeah.
So as long, I'm not going to lose my privilege, right?
Yeah.
Because, I'm going to tell you that I know I'm privileged. I walked up ahead of you, but, I'm so sorry that I did that, but let me get my stuff, right? You're going to see that. But one of the things that critical race theory tries to do is the critique of liberalism, looking at liberalism and saying, wait a minute, right? Wait a minute. Earlier today, I pulled, because I was ready for y'all today. Earlier today, I pulled the just a couple of things, because I wanted to make sure I had it actually right. I pulled a dissenting argument from Justice John Harlan from Plessy versus Ferguson, which led to Brown versus Board of Education in 1896. But one of the things that he said, and you will hear this with liberals, right? I want you to listen to this. He said that the white race deems itself to be the dominant race in this country, and so it is. In prestige, in achievements, in education, in wealth, and in power. But in view of the Constitution, in the eye of the law, there is in this country no superior, no dominant ruling class of citizens. There is no caste system. Our Constitution is colorblind. That's the key word right there. And neither knows nor tolerates classes among citizens. In respect to civil rights, all citizens are equal before the law, and humblest is the peer of the most powerful. Now, that sounds great, right?
Sounds awesome.
Supreme Court's putting this out. But we know that Plessy versus Ferguson told us we were separate but equal, right? We know that the schools didn't have books. We know that people were poor. We know that we couldn't ride on the same buses and everything. We know how that history played out. So when the liberal tells you that they're colorblind and that they're for CRT, you have to take that with a grain of salt if there is no action. Because in the end of the day, right, we have a lot of rights. We have constitutional rights, but constitutional rights, Philando Castile, he had constitutional rights, right?
Yes, sir.
They had constitutional rights, but those men are dead, right?
Yes,
we have to look at Trayvon Martin had constitutional rights. Those rights only go so far as the federal government puts out that the Supreme Court says, yes, this is constitutional, but does it affect us at the lower level as it gets down to us? And we have to challenge the authority. So I get a little concerned when liberals say, yeah, I'm for CRT. Yeah, but what are you doing about it, right? How are you supporting us in these schools when you know that we don't know our history? Who's allowing these books to come from the South into some of these schools that revision history, right? We have to look at that and challenge everybody on every hill, not just because of their political persuasion, but understand that this country has a history of separate but equal lie, right? So let's understand that.
I think Dr. Kendi, would describe what you just said. His book about how to be an anti-racist is that you can't. There's no such thing as things like colorblind and neutral. Just further sort of they don't fix the problem. Let's continue it. You got to be anti. You got to work. You have to take action to be anti-racist. It's not enough to just be race neutral or racist neutral. No, the status quo as is will continue this pattern of racism. You have to be anti. You have to take that action. So I appreciate that, Mr. Phillips, for putting that out there.
So let me read this, guy. Let me read this for you guys, and I want to get y'all knee-jerk reaction. Evangelist Pat Robertson called critical race theory a monstrous evil. And over the past year or so, that monstrous evil has supposedly been growing many legs. And the Republicans pointed out Black Lives Matter was the Black Lives Matter demonstrators. And 3 days after George Floyd murder, even Trump had recast the largely peaceful demonstration as violent and dishonorable thugs. But they are Pat Robertson. Now, this is an evangelist, a man of God, said that critical race theory was a monstrous evil. A monstrous evil that just teaches the truth. That simply says, hey, it ain't equal for everybody. And there are some things that's in play, some underlying things that's in play, some very subtle things that's in play that people are not admitting to, and that has been put in place to hold a demographic of people back, and y'all ain't admitting, and you haven't owned up to it. So now we're going to bring these things to light. But this is a monstrous evil. When you hear stuff like that, how does that make you? As I know how it makes me feel, but I'm just curious, how does that make you guys feel when you hear stuff like this? I mean, he's a white evangelist, true, and we're gonna get into that in a minute too. But when you hear someone speak like that against just the truth being brought out, like, what's your knee-jerk reaction to that?
I'm not surprised at all. I mean, I'm not. You know, I think it was a couple of weeks ago. It might even been like a week ago, but I was telling Pastor Razor, I always challenge people, and I know I make people mad when some of the posts that I put out. But one of the things that I was talking about, when I was getting ready to go talk about CRT on the Erudition, is I went in and I pulled the documents from pastors, from preachers, right? Doing just after the Fugitive Slave Act came out. These are men of God living in the North, not in the South, who told these people that, you know, for the betterment of your country, you should go back to slavery, right? You had one guy actually came out and told him in front of, you understand, black free people were in these churches. He told him, I would put my own son and brother and myself in slavery if it's for the betterment of this country. So
was this a black guy that said that?
These are white people who sat in front just before the Civil War, because they did not want to lose, as John said earlier, their status. They knew that a country at war would hurt their status, their money, their wealth. And so they were willing, as they said, they were abolitionists. And understand, too, if we look at history, the abolitionists did a flip-flop on us, too, if you really read your history, right? Once the black man got the vote, a lot of the female abolitionists was like, wait a minute, how you get this man to vote? And I'm white, and I'm your wife, your sister, your daughter. So we have to understand that they have this in them. They have this being taught to them. If I tell you to go out and read a book, right, or from a black scholar, do you not think that there are racist whites who are telling their children and their family and their progeny to go read racist books and racist things, and they're learning from these books? That's why these books are still out here in Amazon. That's why you can still get them on Google Books for free. They haven't gone away. So I'm not surprised at that.
No, wow. Not at all. Wow. Not at all. People going people, and most people are going to look out for their own self-interest at the end of the day. They will hide behind the Bible in some instances. They'll hide behind whatever they can, you know, to sort of to justify and to get others to sort of coalesce and go along with whatever it is that they're spouting. And so, like, I think there was a comment about, you know, about evil being evil, right? It couldn't be more accurate. And these so-called men of the cloth, like I know the God I worship, you know, would never condone, you know, 3/5 of a man as law. Right. So it's like, okay, well, you know, consider the source, you know, and what they have to lose in situations when they sort of put out these thoughts and opinions around, you know, what should be eradicated. Like, why would you be so passionate about such a thing, you know, unless you had something personally at stake at the end of the day, whether it's you or your ancestry. Or, you know, so your progeny, it's all nonsense at the end of the day, right? And it comes from perceived loss.
Right. So let's examine the flip side of this coin. Then there are some blacks who believe that critical race theory should not be taught. They believe that it teaches division. They believe that it is giving us as a people a cop-out to work, to put forth effort. They believe that it's giving us a crutch to say I can't do anything and get anywhere because the man is holding me back. I remember ever so distinctively, maybe about a month or so ago, there was a young black man who went viral because he was proclaiming about how he is not oppressed in this current society. He was actually just a recipient of a double doctrine or whatever it is that he had. And he stood proudly before all of his peers, who, might I add, was 99.6% white.
Mm-hmm.
And they clapped for him.
And said that critical race theory was foolishness and that it needs to be dispelled of, and that I'm not oppressed. If I was oppressed, I would not have been able to accomplish these things that I've accomplished. If black people was oppressed in America, we wouldn't have success stories like Jay-Z and whoever else is rich, and look at our athletes and how they're paid. How is it that we are an oppressed people when we have so many success stories? There are many successful black businessmen and women. This cannot be real.
Success in spite of, Mike.
Success in spite, but I'm just saying why? Because of. It's like, how is it this critical race theory is a farce? As a black man, I'm telling you, it's foolishness. It's silly. It's stupid.
Sounds like a capitalist to me.
How do we counteract that?
You I don't know if y'all saw it recently. Man, lately I have been really angry. I'm gonna use the word, sorry, Mom, if you're out there, pissed off, because the reality of it is we put a high emphasis on wealth in the black community, more so than we put on the intellect, on intelligence, and that's bad.
Integrity.
Hey, I don't mean to cut you off, but I need you to repeat that part for the people that got their headphones turned down. Can you say it one more time?
Say it one more time.
We put an emphasis on money over intellect, over, like you said, like morality, over intellectual pursuits, over spiritual pursuit, right? And we didn't used to do that. We weren't taught that back in the day because we didn't have that. So when you make the point of the millionaire, the billionaire, I remember sitting with a sailor years ago, sitting on the watch floor. And I was telling him, man, I don't listen to hip hop like that because I don't want to hear nobody to dispel or disparage a black woman, right? I was like, that does something to me because I got sisters. And then he's like, yeah, man, but he's spitting the truth. I said, but what truth is he spitting, bro? Who is getting him to spit that truth out to you? There's a thing called operant conditioning, right? Which condition you to think this way. So now what winds up happening is you say, no, I got to listen to it. The first thing came out that young man's mouth, I never forgot it. He said, but Peter Officer, he rich.
Wow.
What does that mean? Right? Because he's rich, I'm supposed to assume that he has the intellectual fortitude and understanding of what it means, or did somebody give him a couple of dollars, pearls and necklaces, right, to lead you astray like the Pied Piper of Hamlin over a cliff, right? And so we got to understand that money thing, man, is a huge thing. And everywhere we go, I'm sure John sees it in school. Everywhere we go, somebody blinking, somebody this. Girls going with dudes because he got money. He flaunting money that he ain't got. Yep. And that money comes with consequences.
That iPhone on a payment plan.
Right? Or that money that he flaunting to you ain't his money. And if that money go away, somebody going to be to see him.
Yeah.
And you, because you spent that money. Right? But the Jay-Z's and the rappers and the people told me that I could be rich and I could be a hustler and I don't have to have an education. I ain't got to do anything, right? I'm a hustle and I'm gonna make it. But you got the ability, more ability than any time in the history of the world right now. Education is everywhere for you, but you're not seeking it out because free money falls out the sky. Somebody gave me a couple of dollars, and now I feel like I'm going to go out here and tell everybody, you can do the same thing that I do, right? Opportunities, man.
Man, how can we though? When I see us standing up before people and saying, listen, this is foolishness. It doesn't exist. Because look at how successful I am. Look at what I achieved. How do we counteract that? Because to me, it seems like when one of us stand up and say, hey, this critical race theory, this whole thing about systemic oppression and this, that, and the other, I think it's foolish. I think it don't exist. I think it gives them a reason to say, we agree. We're saying the same thing. Look at you. Look at you. Can you tell your people the same thing? Because it's you are living proof that there is no such thing as that. It's like it's like that whole concept of one step forward, two step backwards.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I see somebody and they come out and they say some stuff like that, and look, Candace Owens is smart as a whip, but the girl, I believe, is just detrimental to a lot of things that Black people's trying to do.
I think to answer your question, Mike, and I see Eddie, you're talking about the money.
Yeah.
I think part of this is rooted in what happens at home, and teaching, where people get their value from, getting value from, what it is that you do, doing important work, not work that necessarily going to, be about getting the bag or whatever else, because the people that they're talking to, it's like so the crowd right now that is chasing after YouTube money or the quick, it's the same mentality as I saw with my parents and my aunts and uncles with the lottery tickets, right?
Oh, come on,
this is like, we need this quick fix, right? We need this quick thing that's going to just swoop us up out of here and fix our lives, right, and make everything just perfect as a result of this money, because we're looking for the money to make the change, because we're not placing the value in the intangible things, like the time with family, like the time, like health, right, and how we eat, how we take care of ourselves, etc. It's all this external stuff, and it's not. I think not until we sort of change our thinking around, material value, at least in sort of like the microwave sense, right? There's nothing wrong with wanting to build wealth or to really achieve things that are going to make a difference for those that come behind you, but that's not going to be that car, right? That's not going to be those clothes. It's going to be something different than that. It's much bigger than you. And we got to break out of this lottery ticket mentality, right? To really take the audience away, because that's what they're talking to.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And the parents too, man. It's the parents too.
Yeah.
We were talking. I said earlier, I tell my kids, I brought Ted up. I know my son, he's not here, and he laughed. But the whole pot. Remember how we was taught that story about the Pied Piper Hamlet? He led all those people off, all those kids off. But we forget at the beginning of the story, he was hired, right? He came there. He
right.
To come do a job, right? He was coming there to lead the rats, whatever. How would you tell the story? But I always tell my kids, I said, the interesting part of that story, they didn't pay him. Right. For whatever reason, they didn't give him what they didn't give him. They didn't give him. And so when they didn't pay him, what did he do? He came back and he got their kids, right? And he led their kids out to whatever. Now, depending on how you read the story, some say he went over the cliff, some say he led them out to whatever.
It was like a river or something. Yeah, something like that. I always
tell my kids, if somebody came to get you and led you away, I'd be ready to fight them. Why in that story they never said that the parents went out to go stop him, to fight him, to do anything? They let him lead them kids away because it was beneficial for them. I can't do nothing with him anyway. So we have to put that part of it also too, of how our society, how some of these parents aren't parents. And we got to be better mentors, better teachers, better pastors, better preachers, better people to help those kids so that they don't get led astray because their parent ain't going to stop that Pied Piper.
Yeah.
And we better remember that.
We got to be better influencers, man, because it's so much more out there that can influence kids. And when I was coming up, social media can be a soul sucking abyss if you're not careful.
Yes.
And I've learned that recently by going on TikTok. I'm just saying, it's one of them things, whereas if you're not careful, you looked up and it's an hour that has passed. And it's just like, what did I do for the last hour?
Digested all of that.
You digesting all of that, and the stuff that's on there, You know, it's just like this is what they are intaking all the time. So I agree wholeheartedly that we as parents have to be more. We have to be able to present them with more of an influence than what social media is doing, and it's hard.
You know, we said that before, Mike.
We did.
You know, stop letting YouTube babysit your kids.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
You got to. And it's not to say
stop putting a tablet in their face,
right?
So they don't bother you. Sometimes you have to actually be a parent. You actually have to interact with your kids,
and it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah,
I got a 7-year-old and 9-year-old that want nothing but my attention all the time. Daddy, look. Right. Daddy, look. Daddy, look. Mm-hmm. And it's so easy to be like,
what?
I'm busy.
I'm busy. And go play Roblox. Beat it. You know.
No, and then they
let me download this game real quick on the tablet. Here you go.
And that's what they digest, right? You know, and you have very little control. And I can speak to this, honestly and transparently. You know, you have very little control. It only takes a second.
Yeah,
for like that YouTube channel that you approved to turn a corner,
to flip to something else,
right? That whatever.
Because these kids are smarter than we think with these tablets and stuff, y'all. I'm telling you, these kids know how to maneuver through those things. They act like they don't know what they're doing, but soon you walk away, they know how to get to those other sites and all that stuff. So,
the channel ends. The channel ends, and it's something else that's related.
Mm-hmm. There you go. There you go.
So listen, fellas.
This was great. This was a good one.
I'm gonna give each one of you guys a moment to give us your last thoughts. Because this is a conversation that can continue because it's so much to unpack, and it's a lot to do within an hour, an hour and a half or whatever. But hopefully it's a conversation that we can continue to have and continue to explore and get something out of it. My take from all of this is that what you do at home counts, because you can send them to school and they can get educated and they can get taught some things, but it's upon us as parents, as guardians. We are the teachers of our kids' history. Mm-hmm. Yes. And if we don't take that responsibility upon ourselves to give them what they need to know who they are, where they came from, what they are, how powerful they are, how great they are, how imaginative they are. I mean, let them know that they are fearfully and wonderfully made. Mm-hmm. If we don't do that, nobody else is going to do it. And we have to make sure that we put that in them even before they go to school. I sit up there and like my boys right now. I remember when they were younger, me and my wife used to buy them little workbooks. So during the summer, they was doing stuff that when they got to school, they were often 2 and 3 years ahead of what they were doing in class.
And my Kennedy like that.
And my kids were bored. Gabriel would go to sleep in class because he was like, Daddy, I'd be bored. I'm like, really? And the teacher was like, is Gabriel getting enough sleep at home? I'm like, yeah. It's just what you're teaching me. You already know. And probably can explain it better than you. He was like, they don't want me to help the other kids, and I just be bored. This is him in 3rd grade, 4th grade. So it's on us. It's on us parents to put it on the kids. But I want y'all to have the last word. Give me y'all final thoughts, John. I'm gonna shoot it over to you, man. Final thoughts.
Just real quick. I would say, teach kids to question. As hard as that is, teach them to question, ask questions, to probe. As hard as it is, so we talked about how hard it was to sort of interact, but it's even harder when you got a kid who actually questions, why things are the way they are, and question, why this rule is the way it is. So teach kids to question, to dive deeper, and then when it comes to schools, what's the quote from? I think it was Will Smith from Concussion, when he's tell the truth. Simple as that. So in terms of what we're teaching in school, tell the truth, right? Can't go wrong with the truth ever at all. So if you're worried, you're fearful that if you present topics to kids that are not in the book or in the curriculum, maybe even in line with the district that may be antiquated, tell the truth. You can't go wrong.
That's it, Brother Eddie. Last words, my friend.
All right. Well, I think John hit it right on the head. we teach things as a rhetoric of certainty, right? We try to make it safe. History a lot of times is taught as this is what happened, and a lot of times we find out that it's not. History is not about that. It's arguments, it's issues, it's controversies, it's things, and so we need to be able to teach that. I remember I was reading what's that guy Samuel Marble said the possibility of blacks, Africans, discovery of America has never been something that is tempting to Americans, right? It is never something that they want to talk about. And so, like he said, let's be honest. He also touched on something that I have to touch on. Mike, you've heard me talk about this before. If we're going to teach anything, always source it.
Absolutely.
Always source it.
Absolutely.
Always source it. When I started Erudition, I think the first video we ever did, I said, we have primary and secondary sources. We will never tell you something that has not been validated. So many memes and so many things. Plus, we are hungry. Don't get me wrong. We're hungry for history, but we go to the wrong sources. When you're too hungry, you go out and eat anything. And so we have to get to a point as knowledgeable people to send people to proper places to learn. And once we do that, whether it be CRT, whether it be whatever, even in the schools, we can reinforce. If somebody taught something bad in the school, I always talk to my kids. I got some of their books right here, right now, old books, right? And let's go look at that. What did they say, right? And so they get a better understanding. They're going to pass their lesson, but they're going to get a better understanding. And that's really what we should be shooting for, our understanding. That's all I got, man.
Just a better understanding. Hey, look, I've been reading up on the 49ers, Eddie. We're going to have to do a show about that, man.
Oh, yeah, the Gold Rush, yeah.
Yes, that's some interesting stuff. Mr. Hines, last words, my friend. What you got?
I really enjoyed this show. It was very entertaining. It was very informative. And just piggybacking off with both of the gentlemen below me, hey, start teaching your kids. And what you don't know, teach yourself.
Yes.
Simple as that.
Man. Good stuff. Mr. Bennet, Mr. Phillips.
Thank y'all so much. Thank y'all so much. Thank y'all.
Y'all know I appreciate y'all, brothers, man.
Thank y'all.
Just know you always got a seat at the table, man.
Yes,
the format
sir.
is always open to you. And I want y'all to come back again, man.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Thank you.
Listen, guys.
Check brother, check brother Eddie K out Thursday. Erudition Network. He comes out Thursday.
Yes, absolutely. Wait, what is Lord Jesus?
Yeah, we'll
my wife is. What is she posting? Okay. Listen. Yeah, there you go.
You better get on it. You better get on it.
Look, she on it too. Listen.
Take 60 seconds. Read the comment below.
Right. She's like, listen, just read the comments. I'm like, all right. So listen, guys, July 31st, Rock the Block Back to School Party. Eddie, I know you in Denver, but John, man, listen, if you ain't doing nothing Saturday, man, 12 to 4, come on through and hang out with us for a little while for the back to school event. For those of you that still want to donate, it looks like this is the stuff that we are asking for. If you can donate to any of these, please feel free to do so. You can hit me up personally, or you can hit up Phil, or you can hit us up on our Facebook page and let us know that you want to donate, and we will make arrangements. Look, ain't no shame in our game. We'll come pick it up. I promise you I will.
Yes, we will. Yes, we will.
I got a van and 2 big kids. We'll come by. Look, I ain't got no problem with sliding through, picking up whatever it is that you got and want to donate. Absolutely. And you can also go and check out our GoFundMe page if you want to donate monetarily. We have a GoFundMe page.
She just put the link up. Put the link up.
You can hit up that link and donate monetarily. Listen, man, we trying to be a blessing to the Inglewood community and the kids, and we just want to have fun in the process, and just do something good. Kids been on lockdown for almost a year and a half, man, and this is going to be a time for them to come out and get back to and having some sense of normalcy. And what's more normal than block parties? You know what I'm saying? So July 31st, that's this coming Saturday, 12 to 4, Rock the Block Back to School Party, 354 West 71st Street. It's going down. So if you ain't got nothing to do, come and hang out with your boys. We're going to be there. We're going to be broadcasting live during the first part of it, and we're going to have a good time. Brother Eddie K. Phillips, man, God bless your ministry. Brother John Bennet, we appreciate you, man. Appreciate both of you brothers. And we can't go wrong.
Don't put that out in the air, Kevin. Don't put that out there. Don't put that out there, Kevin.
What? I know. Stop it, Kevin.
Don't put that out there.
Man, don't
put that out there. Don't put that in the universe right now. Don't do that.
It's always one. God,
why? That's my childhood friend.
I shouldn't even put your comment up on the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like Kev.
We're going back on lockdown.
I know.
Stop
Just
it.
stop it. Just stop it. Listen, we gotta. I gotta shout out my boy, Chef Ken. He definitely gonna be there,
Yes,
and
sir.
we gotta thank also Pastor Henry Razor for being the host. He's letting us host it there. So look, it's a lot of components to this thing, man. But we working together, and we gonna make it work. I definitely got to take the time out to thank you all that's hung out with us on today and took part of this conversation. Listen, it's a conversation that got to continue, y'all. We got a lot of work to do. But as we all said in the general senses is a lot of that work starts at home. So on behalf of Mr. Phillips and Mr. Bennet and Philip Hines and myself, this has been the Man Up Real Talk podcast. And until we talk again, my friends, y'all get 2 fingers to the side. Holla at your boys because we out.
Peace.
Sweet, guys.